All right, welcome back, everybody. Here's our presentation on the key performance indicator known as turn. As usual, I like to start with the Lord Kelvin quote. That way I figure if you see it enough times, you'll really apply it to your business. But you cannot improve what you do not measure. So if you want to improve your turns, which will certainly improve your profitability, and it will also improve how your customers view the store, you want to start to measure that turn so you can improve both of those things. So thanks to Lord Kelvin for that great quote that he wrote, I think hundreds of years ago, actually. All right, here we go. Turn. So first, our definition. Turnover is the number of times that an average stock sold within a given time, and normally measured as a year. Okay, how many times in a year your inventory completely changes over, okay? The formula for it is your annual sales divided by your average monthly inventory. Annual sales divided by average monthly inventory. Okay, and what's our goal here? Our goal is to get a pretty fast turn. We want it to turn as fast as I can without losing sales. Okay, so turn has sort of a a lower end and an upper end, right? We don't want the turn to be so slow that we've got the goods for forever. At the same token, we don't want it to be so fast that we actually end up missing business, and I'll explain that more as we get a little deeper into this presentation. Okay, so here's an example. In a year, we sell 600 pairs of jeans. On average for the year, we have 200 pairs in stock, so our turn is roughly a 3. And for most of you, a 3 turn is probably the right thing. That's kind of a good sweet spot to be, although a little faster wouldn't be bad either. Okay, so how do we use this? Well, first off, the faster we turn, the more profit, right? The more often I turn over those goods and get new fresh goods in, the more times I generate that margin out of there each time, right? If I turn too fast, though, I could be losing sales. Why is that true? Well, let's say I'm turning 6 or 7 times a year. That means I'm going to be out of that inventory before all my customers have had a chance to see it and potentially buy it, right? And so one of the things I don't want to do, certainly, is disappoint the customer. Have them come in, they think I've got this great denim inventory, but I don't have their size. I'm out of it. I'm done, okay? If I'm turning too fast, I could disappoint them and lose them on a long-term basis, okay? And turn often leads into specific discussions about what should the right level of inventory be. And obviously, turn is different store to store, but it's also different classification of merchandise to classification of merchandise, right? In types of inventory where there's lots and lots of sizes, like denim, like lingerie, like shoes, you have to have a slower turn because you're going to have what? More average inventory on the shelf because you've got to fulfill all those different sizes that are out there. Turns can be faster in things like fast fashion or t-shirts or even blouses where they're not as heavily sized and you can get in and get out. Okay? So how does turn equal to profitability? Well, look at this interesting example here. Okay? So let's assume again we sell 600 pairs of jeans on an annual basis. Okay? And let's just say they retail for $200 and they cost us $110. Okay? So what's our gross margin? Well, it's 600 pairs, that's what we have, okay, times $90, which is our margin, the $200 minus the $110. So our gross margin is $54,000. Now watch what happens based on different levels of average inventory. If I keep an average level of inventory of 300 pairs, okay, I get 300 pairs times 110 is $33,000, right? That's what I'm keeping in stock. So therefore, my net profit is $21,000, right? The 54 minus the 33 is $21,000. But if I only keep 200 pairs, okay, and I get the same level of sales, okay, the inventory I'm holding is $22,000 instead of $33,000, my net profit is $32,000. So you can see that if I kept 200 pairs, I get $32,000 worth of profit, whereas if I had 300 pairs, I only get $21,000, right? I cheat myself out of $11,000. So that's how turn equals profitability. If I can maintain the same rate of sale, but keep a lower level of inventory, I get more profit out of it. Why? Because I'm turning the goods faster. I'm getting more out of that inventory. That inventory is working a little bit harder for me. Okay? Now, how do I use this to improve my business? Okay, well, if you're measuring turn, right, and a turn is your average sales divided by your average inventory, okay, the first thing is get control over your buying. Just because you love it doesn't mean you have to buy everything they have, okay? You want to make sure that you're thinking with, what am I going to sell? Am I going to the market with a sales forecast that enables me to turn the goods effectively? Okay, you want to make sure you're getting out of old inventory, and I'll talk about this more in some of these other presentations. But what I can tell you is that old inventory is not your friend, and carryover, it does not help anybody. What you want to do is you want to get out of your old inventory, and I would recommend you go through your stores right now, look at what you got that's old, that's been there longer than 6 months, longer than a year, and come up with a plan to get rid of it. Okay. Again, turn is a great place to have a discussion with your vendor. Hey, based on the way I'm selling this right now, I'm going to turn this 1.5 times a year. That's not going to work for me. I'm not going to get paid. You're not going to get paid. What do we do about that? Okay. Sometimes to generate a little faster turn, you may have to take a markdown. But, markdowns are not always the solution. Sometimes it's, I've landed it, but does anybody else know about it besides me and the receiving clerk, right? Did we market it? Did we post it to social media? Have we advertised it? Do our salespeople know about it? Have I told them why it's important? Those kinds of things. And while we're talking about salespeople, we can also talk about maybe doing some kind of salesperson incentive fee. The last two are things that erode the margin. I don't want you to think that's what I'm trying to get you to do is erode your margin. I'm not. What I am trying to get you to do is I'm trying to get you to see that turn improves the business, because the sooner you're out of those goods and bring more goods in, the more excitement you generate on the sales floor, the more money you get out of it faster. And remember something, your inventory is an investment. And so you want to make sure you're getting your profit and your cash out of that investment and onto the next thing. Okay, here's that great quote again from Mark Weiss from Management One. Inventory is your most important asset. It is the gas that makes the car go. The best marketing a retail store ever had was having the right merchandise. So what are we talking about here when we talk about turn in this one, right? We're making sure that the right merchandise is there. It's there for the right amount of time. We're turning it at the appropriate speed, but we're also out of it at the right time so that we're on to the next thing. And then our customer sees, yes, I've had those goods. I've had them. I've been narrow and deep in them for a while. And now I'm on to the next great season, the next great inventory, the next important buy. And that's what brings them back to the store often. Let's look at how you can find turn inside Retail Pro. So you can look at it on an item level or on a style level. For some of these other stats, other than days of supply, I really like to look at them on the department level or on the vendor level. So what I did here was I found this department, and then you can hit the profile button and you get this screen. You can always choose your date range, and you can figure out what's going on. The other place to get this information, of course, is by running a report in Retail Pro. I've done that before we started this video, and I've pulled out some of the more salient facts for you to look at as we look at this, so you get a better understanding of turn and how Retail Pro is looking at it. So here's the department code, like here's one of them right there. Here's what we sold in the last 12 months. Okay, this was our average daily inventory. So in terms of quantity, over all of that year, we sold 13,740 pieces. Our average daily inventory was 6,224. So to get to the turn, you take this sold quantity, you divide it by the average daily inventory, and that's how you get the turn. Okay, so right now we're looking at turns for a couple of different departments, and they're not so great, right? So 2.2 is okay, not great. This guy's below 2, that's really not good. Why is it not good? Well, look at how much. He sold 10,000 pieces in a year. He's got more than half of that in stock all year long. That's pretty rough. Look at this guy. That's at 1.38, right? Almost as much sold as he has inventory here. That's why it's 1.38. This is going to be hard to make money here unless this was a really high margin department. Okay, so you want your turns to be in this range, in the threes, right? If you look at it, and granted we took a smaller sample here, but 600 pieces, I'm keeping 200 on the shelf. That's turning 3 times a year. We're moving through those goods pretty well. Here I've got 566, and I've got an average daily inventory of 175 pieces. I'm turning a little over 3. That's a good turn right there. Again, you want to watch these turns. You want to watch these numbers. You want to make sure that you've got an appropriate turn, and you don't want to get into these lower numbers here. It means that you've got some problems you've got to take some action on. Okay, how are we going to use turn in our business? How are we going to make this thing work? Okay, first of all, it is possible to turn too quickly. If I'm turning 5 or 6 or more times a year, I'm probably out of inventory before every customer that could or would buy that item is buying it. You've got to watch those turns month by month, class by class, to make sure that the turns are appropriate. If they're too slow, it means you've bought the wrong goods. Everybody buys the wrong goods. There's no such thing as a perfect buyer. At some point in time, you have to give up and go, okay, I'm going to take the markdown. I'm going to talk to the vendors. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do to get out of this inventory. The turns are a measure of your profitability. You know, in the restaurant inventory, they talk about table turnover, right? How often do they turn tables over? They don't want you lingering in there for hours. They want to seat as many people as they can. In retailing, it's the same concept. I want to get more inventory onto the shelves and turning over and changing year in and year out, month in and month out to make that happen. But here's the other thing that's really important in terms of turn that you have to think about in terms of your store. When a customer comes to your store, if she sees what she saw last month, she's not coming next month. Turn also enables you to make sure your floor stays fresh, it stays new, that there's exciting new product there. And for the customer, there's a reason to return next month. There's a reason to be there. I actually have seen it where people have walked into a store, looked around, and left right away. And I watched the store owner go out and say, why did you leave my store so quickly? And they said, nothing's new. We've seen it all before. Imagine how costly that mistake is. That turn is part of what Mark Weiss is talking about when he talks about having the right inventory is the best marketing a store can have. You want to keep that turn going so that the store continues to be fresh and new. This is the measure of how profitable you are, how good your marketing is, how good your sell-through is, and how well your store can be profitable. Okay, how are we going to use turn in our business? How are we going to make this thing work? Okay, first of all, it is possible to turn too quickly. If I'm turning 5 or 6 or more times a year, I'm probably out of inventory before every customer that could or would buy that item is buying it. You've got to watch those turns month by month, class by class, to make sure that the turns are appropriate. If they're too slow, it means you've bought the wrong goods. Everybody buys the wrong goods. There's no such thing as a perfect buyer. At some point in time, you have to give up and go, okay, I'm going to take the markdown. I'm going to talk to the vendors. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do to get out of this inventory. The turns are a measure of your profitability. You know, in the restaurant inventory, they talk about table turnover, right? How often do they turn tables over? They don't want you lingering in there for hours. They want to seat as many people as they can. In retailing, it's the same concept. I want to get more inventory onto the shelves and turning over and changing year in and year out, month in and month out to make that happen. But here's the other thing that's really important in terms of turn that you have to think about in terms of your store. When a customer comes to your store, if she sees what she saw last month, she's not coming next month. Turn also enables you to make sure your floor stays fresh, it stays new, that there's exciting new product there. And for the customer, there's a reason to return next month. There's a reason to be there. I actually have seen it where people have walked into a store, looked around, and left right away. And I watched the store owner go out and say, why did you leave my store so quickly? And they said, nothing's new. We've seen it all before. Imagine how costly that mistake is. That turn is part of what Mark Weiss is talking about when he talks about having the right inventory is the best marketing a store can have. You want to keep that turn going so that the store continues to be fresh and new. This is the measure of how profitable you are, how good your marketing is, how good your sell-through is, and how well your store can be profitable.